Welcome to Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen, along with my co-host, Michael Duarte. We actually call him the Silver Fox around here, and if you're watching us on TV, you'll know why. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Cary?
I'm good. Hey, Mike, Families in Action is brought to you by your local hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We've been on the air 13 years, soon to be going on 14. Exciting, isn't it?
Very.
Isn't that cool?
It's amazing.
Thanks to everybody, especially KHTS, that allows us to do that. And
Jerry and Carl gave you a place to go every Monday.
Yeah, and Stephanie Weiss for starting it. And yeah, it's been really, really exciting.
Very
and
good.
we can really give out some great information. I think is super important. We know knowledge is power. So that's what we're up to here. And then we're also brought to you by Action Family Counseling, which is alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers for adolescents and adults. We have many. And the foundation, which I'll let you talk about.
Cary, two things. Since school year is starting.
Oh, yeah. It's here.
It's here. So, wipe those tears. The Action Academy, free public sober school for local junior high and senior high school students. Cary, such a cool thing. And you've expanded this year.
We have. We were doing, I think there is quite a few sober schools. Not many, but there's a few. But we created one along with the Hart School District. And I think we're about the only one with a drug rehabilitation center and a school district are doing it in a joint venture. So it's so exciting. And it's not just for high school, it's for middle school too. We had 12 kids last year, and we had a waiting list. So now we're at 18.
That's so cool.
And we're expanding all the time.
One other thing we need to talk about, and you are here.
Your friend is right there on the table. You might want to say hi to him.
Oh,
yeah, there you go.
Cary's pointing
I was just
out.
watching that little.
We had a bug crawling across the console here.
Exactly. I don't want it to crawl on your arm and watch you freak out.
I don't freak out over bugs. Thank you very much, though, for
You're
your
welcome.
concern. Now, we know where you are every Monday from 12 to 1.
I am.
Where are you every Tuesday evening?
Every
7 to 9?
Every Tuesday evening, I'm at Canyon High School in the AA building, joining the Parent and Teen Support Group, which is really a neat thing. It's been going on, Michael, for almost 30 years. So we have a teen group ran by counselors, and we deal with everything from self-esteem to drugs and everything in between. And then there's a parent support group with parents that have been through anything that you even can imagine. Self-esteem, school problems, cutting problems, drug problems, gang problems. So it's really a safe place for parents to come and get some answers, and for kids to come and be in a safe environment where positive influence take over the negative.
Yeah.
So it's really a pretty cool place, because you want these kids to stop doing what they're doing. You got to get some kind of alternative peer group. So that's kind of what we do there.
Fantastic opportunity, and you can't beat it because the word free is in there.
No.
Hey, it's Cary, we mention this every Monday, and it's kind of one of those things that we need to mention, but it's sad that we do. The Center for Disease Control, every 19 minutes, somebody dies in the U.S. from an accidental overdose, which means we lose 3 people during our 1-hour show. That's so sad.
It's so serious that I'm going to start blasting it on TV too. I'm doing the Robert Irving show. I just did something with him, but now we're going to do opiates. In the Channel 7 News, we're going to be doing a deal Wednesday on heroin and opiates. And of course, Nasoxen, which saves people. And that's really the reason I want to do the news is not so much about the drugs. People know drugs kill, but I want people anyone that has an opiate person living in their home, I want them to have this Nasoxen, because it can change things quick. So we're trying to get the message out there. We'd sure like to beat that number up.
Oh, that's a tragedy.
Why don't we introduce? Let's bring our guest even before we do our thing. So why don't you introduce our guest?
Absolutely. Well, Cary, we're delighted to have Kathryn Barger, who is apparently is having some voice situation that's making her sound a bit like Lauren Bacall.
This is as good as it gets.
All right.
Right here.
We'll let our viewers decide. But Kathryn is actually Chief Deputy for Supervisor Michael Antonovich. She's here to speak about a really, really neat situation that they are involved with, which will help the homeless population here in Los Angeles, which is a big, big deal. Cary, we have an action file item. You're going to like this.
I had no doubt.
Yeah, you're going to like this one. USDEA denies petition to reclassify marijuana.
I loved that when I saw that. And, I was watching the Facebook and the people, and I like, somebody gets it. Because if you really look at, first of all, go on, you speak, and then I will.
Well, here's
I got a lot to say about this.
The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration last Thursday denied requests to loosen the classification of marijuana as a dangerous drug with no medical use. The decision...
With what? With no
dangerous.
What? With no what?
No medical use.
And I've been saying that forever. Marijuana cures nothing. It gets you high. So, of course, when you're high, you feel better. Yeah. But you can take a pill and feel better, too. So it really doesn't cure anything. And if I work with kids, and I see what this new grade of THC marijuana is doing to our children, we're in trouble. We really are, because it's got that 7-day half-life. It's extremely potent, and these kids are in big trouble when they start smoking young. So we better figure out that this is not a harmless drug. It does damage, especially to adolescents when the brain's not even developed. So, I mean, I can go on for all. You're going to have to shut me up because I can do
That's all right. I want to go on with this action item. You're going to like the rest of this. But this decision is the DEA's response to a 2011 petition by 2 former state governors who had urged federal agencies to reclassify marijuana as a drug with accepted medical uses. In the letter, the petitioners, the DEA said, had asked the Department of Health and Human Services for a scientific and medical evaluation of the issue. HHS concluded that marijuana has a high potential for abuse,
really?
Has no accepted...
They finally figured that out, huh?
Has no accepted medical use in the United States and lacks...
How do you like that?
And lacks an acceptable level of safety for use even under medical supervision. Don't you love that?
Wonderful.
For decades, marijuana has been classified that way as a Schedule I drug on par with heroin. So they've rejected the appeal. And Kathryn and I were talking earlier, and we said they had unfortunately gotten the cart before the horse, haven't they?
I believe they have. I mean, you look at what's going to be on the ballot in November to legalize marijuana in California. This issue back in Washington, you've got experts who are looking at it, and for them to make that decision tells me that they know a little more than some of the people in California that want to put this on the ballot.
You know what's really sad, though? I did a thing. Remember Crossfire on Channel 9?
Yes.
I was on there defending... No, somebody was on there trying to legalize this years ago, and I was the one against it. And I thought never would this happen. It's going to be legal.
Well, and if you want to even complicate it a little more beyond the health risk, it's an all-cash business. And up in the Antelope Valley, in rural areas, we've had a series of robberies, and we've had people killed because the cash is there.
It's an all-cash business because of the federal law, right?
Yes, exactly. They cannot deposit it in the federal banks.
So how does...
Well, and that's why I said the cart before the horse. These are things that should be fleshed out on the federal level. To me, it's problematic to do it the way it's being done.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it right, right?
Well, I don't think
I think we all agree it shouldn't be done.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, it's going to be done. I really believe it's going to pass, and I think that's crazy. But then, it starts at home, too. So we have to be teaching our kids when they're young, because there's a lot of things out there that are pretty darn negative. This is one that's just going to make it more accessible. Even more, what frightens me more than it becoming legal is our lack of whatever when it comes to pot. You know what I mean? We think it's like it's not a big deal. Right. Used to be parents would call me and say, what was in his drug test? And I go, 800 milligrams of THC. And they go, oh my God. And why don't they call and they say, what was in his test? I said, a lot of pot. They go, that's it? Okay, have a good day. Click. That's not good. That's what worries me even more than anything else is the people's whatever you want to call it to that
perception. Well, this story that I just read is great, and it should be trumpeted louder out there. It really should.
Yeah, no, it should be.
Hey, Cary, we've got a cool show today. We're going to be looking at addiction, mental health, and homelessness. And Kathryn, I've got a question for you. Now, what started this was a letter, right, that was sent from Michael Antonovich's office to the governor, right, regarding the homeless situation and an urgent appeal.
Right. It was the board as a whole to declare a state of emergency in the state of California based on the rise in homelessness, not only concentrated in Skid Row, which is where everyone traditionally thought they all resided, but in fact, county-wide, the numbers have gone up, and we've declared a state of emergency. We've asked the governor to declare a state of emergency, but for the county, it is.
And one of the big deals that we're talking about today is that while we're talking about the homeless, it's not that we want to build a bunch of housing for them, because that's actually proven not to be the smartest thing to do right off the bat. We're talking about the need for other kinds of services. It's not a one-size-fits-all. If it were that easy, we would have solved this problem many moons ago. We've looked at it. We in the county are looking at it in through several different lenses. First and foremost, we want to look, how do we prevent people from becoming homeless? Because we know once they become homeless, the cost goes up quite a bit.
And Kathryn, a lot of people too are one paycheck away from it.
I tell people that all the time. And it's one paycheck away.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was talking about somebody that drives a nice car and has a nice house. I said it could be that person is one paycheck away from losing everything.
Absolutely, and so that, I mean, that is an important thing to note. So we are looking at that in terms of how do we help people who are that one paycheck away from being homeless. One way is to make sure that there are jobs and the economy is strong.
Right.
Because you lose your job and you're one paycheck away.
And everybody wants stuff. So the more, they want to one up the person next door, but by doing that, they get themselves in huge trouble.
Exactly. And then you've got to look at the second. I mean, those that are alcohol and drug addicted that end up on the street. Yeah. You have to want. They have to want to get the help.
Well, let's put this in perspective too for the people that are listening. There are roughly 47,000 homeless in LA County, right?
Correct.
Roughly.
Correct.
Right. And there are really four groups. Mm-hmm. Four groups. One would be, we're talking about addiction. So we have alcoholics, we have drug addicts. We also have people, and we've just hit on that a little bit here, and that is people who are economically distressed, and so they're in a homeless situation. Precisely. So we're looking at, and veterans are in there as well, but they can fall into all those groups because of the lack of services.
Correct. And then you've got the mentally ill.
Right, and the mentally ill, which is a big deal because Cary and I work with that population all the time over at Henry Mayo's behavioral health unit.
A lot of them, yeah. It's pretty sad.
And then you've got those that have a mental health issue who are self-medicating, and it just complicates it even more.
Well, what happens? Yeah, a lot of people they have psychotic dealings, and when they start taking other medications, it kind of controls the voices for a little bit. And what we know is it doesn't last long, and then it causes so many more problems because now you got mental health issues and addiction issues, and you got to deal with both of them.
Well, and from what I understand, and I'm not a doctor, but the addiction issues mask the proper diagnosis of the mental health condition.
When we have people come in and they're acting psychotic, a lot of times the doc doesn't want to give them any medications for a few days because we need to know, number one, is it psychotic? Is it really psychosis, or is it drug addiction?
Exactly.
Because a lot of times, especially with crystal meth and some of the other drugs, they look the same. So it really makes things a little more complicated when treating people. Yeah.
And the big question for us today really is, what role does proactive mental health treatment play in our effort to combat homelessness?
Oh, I absolutely think that is crucial in terms of addressing this issue. And, I tell people the county has 88 cities within the county, and you touched on the housing component. I believe the cities can and should be empowered to address the issue of housing. There is a shortage of affordable housing, and we need to look cooperatively with our cities on how we can address that. The county's role truly is health and human services. How do we provide those services and make sure those services are provided in the community? And when you look at people that are displaying mental health, I'm trying to think of the word, issues, how do we proactively or get to it quickly so they don't spiral out of control and end up on the street?
Right.
And it's not all about money alone. I personally believe we need to look at our mental health laws and how they are, how they may need to be updated. We also need to look at how we provide mental health services. We were talking earlier,
or the lack of
mental health services. But we were talking before we came on the air. The county is looking at doing urgent care centers for the mentally ill. And what is that going to mean? That's going to mean rather than law enforcement picking up people that are a danger to themselves and other, what they call 5150s.
Right.
they'll have a place to go where they can be triaged, because some of those individuals may not need hospitalization.
And we have those clinics right now. They're called ERs, unfortunately, because I run the behavioral health unit at Henry Mayo. I'm the executive director, and when these people have nowhere to go, when they run out of meds, when their meds stop working, and they're homeless especially, where do they go? They go to ERs.
And it's very costly.
It's extremely costly.
So we're looking at implementing urgent care centers that are focused only on the mentally ill. They'll get triaged, they'll be linked to community services, and we'll develop a relationship.
And they'll find a bed for them if they need
exactly
one.
They need
meds.
And meds. And that's the key point. What you said is that they're not going into the emergency room, and then if we need to find beds, it's done there. They've got the entire scope of the county to better understand where the beds are, versus law enforcement who gets frustrated because they'll take them into the hospital. If there's not a bed,
or if they're not suicidal, they'll be released.
And then they're out back on the street.
And if they are suicidal, it's 3 days and they're back out anyway.
Exactly. And that's why I believe that we need to look at our mental health laws, because I'm completely in support of due process.
Yes.
I don't want to go back to a day when you could institutionalize someone without really meeting a strict criteria.
Of course.
But at the same time, I think the pendulum swung to the other side.
It surely did.
And we need to do it.
Yeah. No, we have to, because we're not solving the problem right now.
We're making it worse.
We're making it worse.
And we are using the LPS law incorrectly now. And for those of you out there that are wondering, what in the world is the LPS law? Latrim and Petra Short were the 3 state senators that put this together. All states have them, but they call them different things. And that's when somebody can be put on a hold, which is to protect them, which is to protect society. But if you're put on a 5150, which is a 72-hour hold, originally in the LPS law, that was only meant to assess what was going on with them. But now what they're doing with the 72-hour hold, you assess them, you medicate them, you do everything, and hello, you go out the door and you're quote-unquote cured. Not. So they really, I know that they're looking at it, because it really needs to be changed. But those people, when they come into us, let's say those patients that are homeless, they're going right back out on the street.
And again, I'm not a doctor, but I have to believe by not properly medicating, it makes the situation worse.
Oh, it sure does.
And it's harder to get them stabilized.
And even more than that, it's hard to properly medicate anyone in 3 days.
Right.
Because if they're put on a hold and they come in a psychiatric unit, for instance, and all of a sudden 3 days later they're better, and there you go. So they're back out on the streets. The meds take 2 weeks to really work. So it's not even working yet, and a lot of times they don't even want to take them then.
Exactly.
So that's a real issue. And the other issue is, and I run a psychiatric unit, so I know the issues, is I was at one of the HASC meetings and they were saying there's no beds. Right. Well, that's not true. There's plenty of beds. But if somebody's unfunded and somebody calls a behavioral health unit, or if they have Medi-Cal because they deny it, the behavioral health unit's going to say we're full. So we have to look at the whole piece when it comes to mental health.
And HASC, which is the hospital council that represents all the hospitals in LA County, should be a key partner in that.
But when I told them that after the meeting, I said, let me tell you something, there's beds. They didn't want to hear that. They said they didn't.
Yeah, no, and I believe that. I think the frustration that I have is, because I handled health and mental health for the supervisor in Tonovich for a long time, is that we need to look at how reimbursement is structured.
Right.
Because, if you're diagnosed with cancer, you're put in the hospital, you're treated, you're reimbursed. Mental health is actually a silent killer, and we need to look at how reimbursement takes place across board with insurance companies as well.
And really almost as serious as cancer.
No, I agree.
Because if people don't get help for their emotional, medical stuff,
it destroys them.
It destroys them and everyone around them. They kill themselves. They end up in jails, and I can go on.
It's a real stressor on families.
I know. And you know what? How many homeless people, just to keep it local for a minute, we have over 1,000 families here in Santa Clarita that are homeless, don't we?
Yeah, about that number. And you find that a lot of those people that are homeless are from the area.
Yes.
They want to be in a familiar surroundings.
And we're not talking living under the bridge. Some are living in the wash, some are living in hotels, some are living in cars, some are couch surfing. But there's a lot of people homeless. In fact, Palmdale, I have an action parent group there, and last year, it was about 2 years ago, I went up there, and there was over 80 people in that room, and half of them were losing their homes. Literally losing their homes because of all that financing they got themselves in trouble with.
Exactly. It's a serious problem, and many of the homeless are invisible. People don't even know that there are homeless families living in their community.
Right.
It's not always that person standing on the corner, looking dirty, walking in circles.
It's the kid that's going to school every day.
Yeah, which is a program I worked on to help get their conditional use permit. Was called Hope Gardens.
Okay.
And it's a place up in Cary Quashen where mothers and children can go.
Wow.
Off of Skid Row. They pulled them off of Skid Row, and it's first time for many kids that they actually have a stable housing and a school, going to the same school. And the success rate has been incredible, and I take my hat off to Union Rescue Mission and Andy Bales, because this was a vision he had. Got a lot of pushback, but I will tell you, Skid Row in and of itself is a bad place, but for women and children,
it's very bad place.
Seeing things that you don't want children to be exposed to.
Super dangerous.
Yeah.
For anyone.
Absolutely.
You know, on that, let's take a note. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.